Okay, so have you ever been, like, just completely unquestionably sure of a victory?
Oh, yeah, like you already have it in the bag.
Right. I mean, maybe it's a high-stakes pitch at work.
Yeah.
Or a friendly argument where you know you hold the ultimate trump card.
Or even just, a casual board game.
Exactly, a board game. And you actually start celebrating before it's even over. You're doing the mental victory lap.
You're already planning the celebration dinner.
Yes. But then, out of nowhere, the ground just simply falls out from under you.
It is, it's a uniquely devastating psychological state.
It really is.
Because you're dealing with the material loss itself, sure, but the true damage comes from the whiplash.
The whiplash of your own hubris.
Exactly. Your hubris catching up to you in real time.
Yeah.
You essentially have to mourn a future that, well, you had already convinced yourself was a reality.
Right. And today we are jumping into a deep dive on a stack of historical records surrounding what might be the greatest, most catastrophic example of that whiplash in human history.
Oh, absolutely.
We're exploring the 1950 World Cup match between Uruguay and Brazil. And our mission here is to dissect the anatomy of the ultimate underdog victory.
And of course, examine the profound dangers of premature celebration.
Yeah, and to really understand how a single sporting event didn't just decide a trophy, but completely rewrote a nation's identity and culture.
The historical stakes here, I mean, they really require a shift in perspective for you as the listener.
Right, because we aren't discussing a simple upset on the Sunday afternoon here.
No, not at all. We are looking at a localized event that triggered literal documented mourning. It fundamentally altered the psychology of millions of people.
Yeah, and created ghosts that haunted a global superpower for, what, more than half a century?
Easily half a century.
It's wild. Okay, let's unpack this. The setup for this match feels almost unbelievable by modern standards.
It really does.
Like, to understand the sheer scale of the overconfidence at play here, you first have to understand a bizarre mathematical quirk of the 1950 World Cup.
Right, the tournament format.
Yeah, because this tournament is the only World Cup in history that didn't end with a traditional knockout, winner-takes-all final match.
Which is so strange to think about now.
It is. Instead, it ended in a round-robin group stage.
Yeah.
And it featured 4 teams: Brazil, Uruguay, Spain, and Sweden.
And that structural format, that's really the foundation of the tragedy.
How so?
Well, because the tournament ended in a round robin, teams were accumulating points over a series of games.
Right.
So going into this final decisive match, Brazil, who, were also the host nation, had accumulated enough points in their previous games that they possessed a massive safety net.
Oh, wow. So they didn't even need to win.
Exactly. They only needed a draw to win the entire World Cup.
That's a huge advantage.
It was. Meanwhile, Uruguay, mathematically, they absolutely had to win outright. If the clock ran out and the score was tied, well, Brazil would be crowned champions.
And Brazil wasn't just resting on a point advantage either, right? I mean, they were an absolute juggernaut.
Oh, they were operating at a terrifying level of efficiency.
Yeah, because in their 2 matches leading up to this final showdown, they absolutely obliterated Sweden. Like 7-1.
Just destroyed them.
And then they crushed Spain 6-1. That is 13 goals in 2 games against elite international competition.
While Uruguay, they looked incredibly vulnerable by comparison.
Yeah, they barely managed a 2-2 draw with Spain.
Right.
And then they just scraped by Sweden 3-2, relying on a goal that was scored like a mere 5 minutes before the end of the game.
So the data overwhelmingly suggested a slaughter was imminent. I mean, Brazil had scored 21 goals in 5 games total before this match.
That's just insane.
And just the previous year, they had won the Copa America, scoring 46 goals in 8 matches.
Wow.
Yeah, they had beaten Ecuador 9-1, Bolivia 10-1, and this is crucial to the story, they had recently beaten Uruguay 5-1.
Oh, so they already had Uruguay's number.
Yeah, exactly. When a team operates with that level of relentless offensive output, they don't just beat their opponents physically. They establish a psychological dominance before the whistle even blows.
Which leads to a level of national overconfidence that, honestly, it sounds like a myth.
It really does.
Like, the day before the match, major newspapers in Brazil, like Gazeta Esportiva and O Mundo, they were already declaring Brazil the champion.
Are printing headlines treating the future as an established historical fact.
Yeah. The government even went so far as to pre-mint 22 gold medals with the Brazilian players' names already engraved on them.
Which is just wild arrogance.
And there was a victory song titled Brazil os Vencedores, Brazil the Victors, which was composed fully rehearsed and ready to be blasted across the country.
The political class, they became entirely swept up in the narrative. They were treating the match as a photo opportunity rather than an actual athletic contest.
Seriously. Like, didn't the mayor of Rio do something crazy?
Oh, yeah. The mayor, Ângelo Mendes de Moraes, he actually delivered a speech to the Brazilian team on the day of the game.
Okay.
He stood in front of these athletes and explicitly declared, "You, who I already salute as victors."
Oh, man. Sitting across the board from a player who is so confident they're already wearing the plastic crown while you're, like, still rolling the dice. It's an absurd situation.
It is completely absurd.
But, conventional wisdom constantly tells us that supreme confidence is the key to elite performance. Like, you have to believe you are the best to be the best.
Right. That's the cliche.
So my question is, does this level of extreme national certainty ever actually fuel a team? Or is it always a psychological trap waiting to spring?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the trap lies in the difference between confidence and delusion.
Okay, break that down for me.
Extreme confidence works when it reinforces focus and execution, right? It helps an athlete trust their training.
Sure, that makes sense.
But what Brazil was experiencing wasn't confidence. It was a delusion of inevitability.
Oh, I see.
They believed the outcome was preordained, which actually destroys focus. And, there was one voice of reason who saw this happening.
Really?
Paulo Machado de Carvalho. He was a Brazilian football leader, and he visited the team's training camp the day before the game, expecting to see athletes preparing for war.
But instead, he finds an absolute circus.
A total circus.
The camp is swarming with politicians making impassioned speeches, journalists hunting for quotes, photographers snapping pictures of the quote-unquote future champions.
And Paulo tries to warn the coach, Flavio Costa, that this chaotic environment is actively destroying the player's concentration.
But the coach just completely ignores the warning.
Completely ignores him. Paulo is so frustrated and honestly so terrified by the sheer blindness of everyone involved that he turns to his son and grimly states, "We are going to lose."
Wow. To be the only person in a country of millions who sees the car crash happening in slow motion, that is a heavy burden.
He recognized that the team had mentally attended their own victory parade, right? They forgot that they still had to actually fight a 90-minute battle.
Yeah. So, transition here. If you are Uruguay, walking into a hostile country that has already printed the headlines, you can't just rely on physical skills.
No, definitely not.
You cannot outscore a team that just dropped 13 goals in 2 games. You have to fight the parade itself.
You have to shatter that delusion of inevitability.
Exactly. And Uruguay had exactly the right psychological tactician to do it, right? Their captain, Obdulio Varela.
Yes, Varela. He possessed a really rare kind of emotional intelligence.
He really did.
He understood that the crushing weight of an expected coronation can actually be weaponized against the very team wearing the crown.
Right, because the narrative was intimidating his own players, so his first goal was to physically degrade that narrative.
And his method was, well, it was unorthodox.
Yeah, so in the morning of the match, Varela heads out into the city and buys up as many early editions of the O Mundo newspaper as he can carry.
The one with the massive photo of the Brazilian team?
Yeah, the one with the caption, "These are the world champions."
Yeah.
So he takes this giant stack of papers back to the hotel, lays them out across the bathroom floor, and this is crazy. He orders his teammates to urinate and spit on them.
It is a visceral, almost primal act of defilement.
Seriously.
But by forcing his team to literally relieve themselves on the symbol of Brazilian dominance, he strips away the mystique.
Right. He takes this terrifying, inevitable future and turns it into soggy paper on a bathroom floor.
It was a masterclass in breaking intimidation.
It really was. But even with that bravado, the coaching staff was still terrified.
Oh, they were petrified.
In the locker room, just before kickoff, Uruguay's coach, Juan Lopez, delivers his final tactical instructions.
What does he tell them?
Well, he looks at Brazil's overwhelming offensive statistics and concludes that the only rational way to survive is to play a strict defensive strategy.
Right, bunker down.
Yeah, he orders the team to bunker down, absorb the pressure, and basically just pray they survive the onslaught.
I mean, the coach was operating purely on logic. When facing an unstoppable force, the instinct is always to build a wall.
Sure.
But Varela recognized the fatal flaw in that logic.
Here's where it gets really interesting. As soon as Coach Lopez leaves the locker room, Varela stands up and stages a full-blown mutiny.
A total rebellion.
He looks at his teammates and countermands the orders entirely. He says, "Juancito is a good man. But today, he is wrong. If we play defensively against Brazil, our fate will be no different from Spain or Sweden.
Which is absolutely true. Playing a purely defensive game against a team operating with absolute offensive freedom, that's just a slow, agonizing death.
Yeah, you're just letting them dictate the terms of the engagement.
Exactly. But Varela refuses to accept the role of the victim.
No, he doesn't ignore the immense pressure or, pretend the Brazilian team isn't a threat.
Right, he acknowledges it.
But instead, he redirects that intimidation.
Yeah.
He converts his team's fear into pure, aggressive defiance.
It's the equivalent of a ship captain being handed a safe, cautious map by an admiral, realizing the map leads straight off a cliff.
And deciding to sail right into the storm instead.
Exactly. Varela finishes his locker room mutiny with a legendary line. He says, "Muchachos, los de afuera son de palo, que comience la función."
Boys, outsiders are just stick dolls. Let's start the show.
That phrase, outsiders don't play, is a brilliant psychological boundary to draw.
It really is.
He is telling his squad that the newspapers, the mayor, the politicians, the pre-minted medals, none of those things can actually step onto the grass and kick the ball.
Right. The narrative is just noise. The only reality is the physical space of the pitch.
And that psychological armor, it was forged in the locker room, but eventually you actually have to open the door and step out into the Maracanazo stadium.
And the atmosphere they walked into, it defies comprehension.
It's hard to even picture.
The officially recorded attendance was just under 174,000 people.
Which is already staggering.
But when you account for illegal entries and people cramming into every available inch, estimates put the crowd at upwards of 220,000 screaming fans inside that concrete bowl.
Unbelievable.
To this day, it is considered the highest attended football match ever played.
You really have to try to conceptualize the sheer kinetic energy of 220,000 people operating under the assumption of absolute victory.
It must have been deafening.
Writers describe the stadium as an improvised, chaotic carnival. There were thousands of signs celebrating the world title, relentless chants demanding a win.
Wow.
It wasn't just loud, it was a literal physical wall of sound and expectation pressing down on the Uruguayan players.
So the game kicks off, and the script seems to be playing out exactly as everyone expected.
Right.
Brazil launches wave after relentless wave of attacks. But Uruguay, following Varela's defiant strategy, they meet them head-on. They hold the line.
And against all odds, the first half ends in a scoreless draw.
Yeah. But then, just 2 minutes into the second half, the dam breaks. A Brazilian forward named Friaça shoots low past the Uruguayan goalkeeper, scoring the first goal. 1-0 Brazil.
And the stadium practically detonates.
Oh, I bet.
This is the precise moment where an underdog typically crumbles.
Right, because the opposition has scored, the massive crowd is validated, the momentum is overwhelming.
The script is fulfilling itself. The psychological weight usually just becomes too much to bear.
But Varela refuses to let his team read that script.
He really does.
Instead of rushing to restart the game or hanging his head or letting panic set in, he does something bizarre. He takes the ball out of the net.
Right.
And he slowly walks over to the referee, an Englishman named George Reeder, and begins to argue that the Brazilian player was offside.
And a crucial detail here, George Reeder is English and doesn't speak a word of Spanish.
Exactly. And Varela doesn't speak a word of English.
Which Varela knows perfectly well.
Yeah, he absolutely refuses to let the game continue. He demands that the referee listen to his complaint and insists that the entire conversation be conducted through an interpreter.
It's so audacious.
He stretches this completely pointless language barrier argument out for several excruciating minutes.
Just dragging it out.
And looking at this from the outside, it feels like a massive gray area. Was demanding an interpreter a cynical exploit of the rules, or was it the highest level of emotional genius ever seen on a pitch?
This raises an important question about how momentum works. It is pure genius because it attacks the unseen physics of the game.
The unseen physics.
Yeah, momentum in sports, particularly with crowds of that magnitude, is a tangible force. When a home team scores, the crowd's energy surges, creating an adrenaline wave that feeds the players.
Right.
That surge often leads to a second or third goal in quick succession because the defending team is just overwhelmed. Varela wasn't actually arguing a penalty at all. No, he was attacking the stadium's kinetic energy.
Oh, wow. So, think about being in a heated negotiation where the other side is steamrolling you with rapid-fire demands.
Exactly.
If you intentionally knock over your water glass or slowly ask them to repeat a minor detail, you shatter their pacing. the adrenaline spike fades.
It's exactly that mechanism. By forcing a bureaucratic, tedious delay through an interpreter, Varela acted as a circuit breaker.
A circuit breaker. I love that.
He took the chaotic, soaring emotion of 220,000 people and dragged it into an administrative halt. By the time the conversation ended and the interpreter was done, the crowd had settled down.
The wave had crashed.
The wave crashed.
So then he takes the ball to the center of the field, looks at his teammates, and shouts, "Now it's time to win."
And the momentum completely shifts.
Completely. Brazil's defense, which hadn't really faced sustained pressure because of their offensive dominance throughout the tournament, suddenly looks frail.
It was exposed.
Yeah, and in the 66th minute, Juan Alberto Schiaffino scores for Uruguay. The game is tied 1-1.
But, and this is key, the mathematical quirk from the round-robin format still looms.
Right.
Because even with a tie, Brazil still wins the World Cup.
Mathematically, yes, but psychologically, the dynamic has completely inverted.
Oh, totally.
Brazil is suddenly terrified of losing a game they thought was a mere formality, while Uruguay realizes the giant is bleeding.
They smell blood.
So, with just 11 minutes left on the clock, Uruguayan winger Alcides Gigia makes a blistering run down the right side of the field.
And he fires a low, hard shot.
The Brazilian goalkeeper, Moacir Barbosa, anticipates a cross to another player. He dives just a fraction of a second too late.
Just a fraction.
The ball rolls under him and into the net. 2-1, Uruguay.
And that goal, it triggers one of the most famous acoustic phenomena in sports history.
The silence, right?
Yes. A stadium packed with over 200,000 people goes completely, absolutely silent.
I can't even imagine that.
The sheer volume of the carnival was instantly replaced by a vacuum. Writers present that day described it as a disturbing and traumatic absolute silence. The kinetic energy didn't just drain, it collapsed into a state of physical shock.
And when the English referee finally blows the whistle to end the game, the fallout is instantaneous.
It was devastating.
Like Ari Barroso, a really beloved Brazilian radio journalist calling the game, is so distraught he literally retires on the spot.
Right there on the air.
And the emotional toll was fatal in some cases. Reports indicate that 8 Uruguayans actually died from the stress of the match and the resulting celebrations back home.
It's hard to fathom. The Maracanã blow was a literal shockwave.
The collective trauma was immense. But, amidst that devastation, there was a profound display of sportsmanship.
Yes, from the Uruguayan side.
Uruguayan newspaper El Dia published a piece referring to Brazil as the other winner.
Which is very gracious.
They didn't gloat. They praised the Brazilian sporting power and wrote about how deeply they admired the great spirit the Brazilian players demonstrated in the face of such sudden, incomprehensible adversity.
That's beautiful. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, most sporting events end when the fans leave the stadium, right?
Yeah, the trophies are handed out and life resumes.
But a cultural shockwave of this magnitude actually alters the literal fabric of a nation forever.
So true. Brazil didn't just lose a football match. The psychological damage was so severe that they literally lost their visual identity.
Yes, the kits.
Because prior to and during the 1950 World Cup, the Brazilian national team wore white shirts with blue collars.
Right. But in the wake of the Maracanazo, the Sports Federation and the Brazilian public deemed those colors completely cursed.
They couldn't even look at them.
No. They were viewed as unpatriotic, a visceral reminder of the greatest failure in the nation's history.
So the solution was a total rebranding.
A clean slate.
In 1953, a newspaper called Correio de Manhan held a national competition to design a completely new outfit for the team. And the only stipulation was that the new design had to incorporate all the colors of the Brazilian flag.
And who won that competition?
An illustrator named Alder Garcia Schlee.
Yeah.
He created the kit that the entire globe now associates with Brazilian football magic. The incredibly bright yellow shirt with green trim paired with blue shorts.
And there is a deep historical irony to that new uniform, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The yellow kit was designed to banish the demons of 1950, right?
Wow.
But when Brazil finally fought their way back to a World Cup final in 1958, ready to claim their first title and achieve redemption, they couldn't even wear the yellow shirts.
Wait, really? Wow.
Because they were playing the host nation, Sweden, who also wore yellow.
Oh, the color clash.
Exactly. So Brazil had to frantically purchase and improvise a set of blue kits for the final match.
That is amazing. So what does this all mean? We look at the Brazilian yellow and green jersey today, and we see the ultimate symbol of joy, creativity, and athletic perfection.
It's arguably the most famous uniform in the world.
But that iconic symbol was birthed directly from the deepest, darkest trauma a sporting culture can endure. If the Brazilian team holds on for a draw in 1950, they stay in white and blue forever. The yellow jersey never exists.
It really illustrates how trauma is processed and inherited across generations, you know? Sports often act as a highly visible proxy for national grief and redemption. The loss in 1950 birthed a psychological complex known as the Phantom of 50, a deep-seated generational dread of playing Uruguay, particularly inside the Maracanazo stadium.
And this phantom wasn't just like a media talking point.
Yeah.
It actively haunted the national team for decades.
It did. Fast forward to 1993, Brazil is struggling immensely to qualify for the '94 World Cup.
Right.
They are forced to play Uruguay in a tense, must-win final qualifying match at the Maracana, and the fear gripping the country was palpable.
A direct echo of the silence from 43 years earlier.
Exactly. It took a heroic performance and 2 late goals by Romario to finally put that specific ghost to bed.
But generational ghosts have a tendency to resurface when the stakes are highest, don't they?
They certainly do.
In 2014, Brazil hosted the World Cup for the first time since the 1950 disaster. And the Uruguayan team actively utilized the Phantom of 50 theme in their media campaigns to motivate themselves.
Interestingly, though, Uruguay was eliminated early on by Colombia.
Also at the Maracanazo, right?
Yes. But Brazil's 2014 campaign ended in a trauma that mirrored 1950 in a deeply unsettling way.
The Minerazo, the completely catastrophic 1-7 semifinal loss to Germany.
The parallels are striking, but the 2014 humiliation actually triggered a bizarre form of historical absolution.
How so?
Well, Moacir Barbosa, the Brazilian goalkeeper from 1950 who dove just a fraction too late, had been unfairly scapegoated and ostracized by the nation for over 60 years.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. But following the 7-1 collapse against Germany, Barbosa's adoptive daughter, Teresa Borba, publicly noted that this new catastrophe was finally enough to redeem her father's legacy.
Wow.
The Brazilian public and media suddenly contrasted the total helpless collapse against Germany with the hard-fought, agonizingly close defeat in 1950, realizing how unfairly Barbosa had been treated.
That's a powerful realization. And, outside his Gigi, the Uruguayan winger who scored the winning goal in 1950, he offered a crucial perspective before he passed away.
What did he say?
He acknowledged that both games were deeply traumatic for Brazil, but he insisted 1950 was different because it was a final. The stakes were absolute. There was no tomorrow.
That makes sense.
And in this chilling historical coincidence, Gigi passed away on July 16, 2015.
Which is?
Exactly 65 years to the day after he scored that decisive goal to silence the Maracana.
That is just incredible. The threads of this single match continue to weave through history, connecting players, nations, and generations.
They really do.
The overarching lesson here is a stark reminder that the narrative you construct in your head, no matter how universally accepted or loudly celebrated by the crowd around you, is completely out of your control until you execute the physical reality.
Which brings the lessons of the Maracanazo directly to you, listening right now.
Exactly.
Whether you are prepping for a massive boardroom presentation, launching a complex creative project, or just trying to navigate a high-stakes week, the mechanics of this upset apply to your life.
You have to actively guard against your own delusions of inevitability.
Right. When the pressure mounts and the noise becomes deafening, you have to remember Varela's rule and tune out the outsiders.
Because they do not play.
Because they don't play. And
Okay.
above all, you must remember that you cannot put on the crown before the final whistle blows.
Anticipation can never replace execution. The moment you assume the future is fixed and the victory is secured, you leave yourself entirely vulnerable to someone who is still willing to fight for it.
It pulls us right back to the feeling we started with, doesn't it? Doing the mental victory lap before the race is over.
It really does.
But the legacy of this match also leaves us with a deeper, much more provocative thought to mull over. We discussed how Brazil's iconic yellow and green uniform only exists as a direct response to a devastating failure.
Right, the bandage for a national wound.
Exactly. The most recognizable, celebrated visual identity in global sports history was forged from failure. So it makes you wonder, as you look around your own life, your career, or just the world at large, what other brilliant, beautiful, iconic things only exist because they were secretly forged in the fires of a total, unexpected collapse?
Viewing failure as the required catalyst for iconic creation, it really changes how we process defeat entirely.
It's definitely something to think about the next time your plans fall apart. Until next time, keep digging deeper. Imagine, uh, imagine you are standing at the absolute summit of Mount Everest.
Okay.
You know, you've climbed higher, you've fought harder, and you've endured just way more than anyone else in the history of your profession. You are totally alone at the top of the world.
Right, you finally made it.
Exactly. You plant your flag, you take this deep breath to admire the view, and then you turn around and someone else is standing right next to you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they're holding a slightly taller flag.
Right. I mean, the natural reaction there, of course, is to reach into your pack, pull out an even taller flag, and reclaim your spot.
Exactly.
But then they do the same thing, and it just becomes this endless, escalating cycle where the peak of the mountain isn't even the goal anymore.
No, it's not.
The goal is literally just outdoing the person standing right next to you.
Yeah, and that is exactly what today's deep dive is all about. We're pulling from Wikipedia's extensive archives on the Messi-Ronaldo rivalry.
The defining rivalry of a generation.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
We're looking at two people at the absolute pinnacle of their field, sharing a stage for 15 straight years, and, just pushing each other to completely rewrite the record books.
It's honestly unprecedented.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to extract the aha moments from this entire 15-year saga. We want to understand the mechanics behind how Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo didn't just dominate their sport, but how they actually transcended it entirely.
Yeah.
Because honestly, for you listening, this isn't just a sports story for football fans. I mean, this is a masterclass in how competition drives human potential.
It really is. And to understand the gravity of that competition, I think we first need to look at the raw output. Because the sheer volume of their success fundamentally broke the scale of how we even measure a football career.
Oh, completely.
I mean, just look at the sources. Between them, they've won a combined 81 official senior trophies.
81.
That's 46 for Messi and 35 for Ronaldo. And according to the International Federation of Football History and Statistics, they are the only two players to ever score over 900 goals each in their careers for club and country.
Wait, over 900 goals? Each?
Each.
I mean, just for some context for you guys, a world-class striker, like a truly elite player, might celebrate a career where they hit 300, maybe 400 goals.
Right, that's a Hall of Fame career.
Exactly. So hitting 900 requires essentially a decade and a half of flawless, uninterrupted perfection.
It requires an unprecedented level of consistency. And that dominance is really reflected in the Ballon d'Or, right? The award for the best player in the world.
The ultimate individual prize.
Right. Messi has been on that podium an astonishing 14 times.
14.
And Ronaldo 12 times. So for the better part of a decade and a half, the rest of the professional footballing world was essentially just competing for a bronze medal.
They were playing a completely different game.
Yeah.
But, they weren't always the undisputed kings of the sport.
They weren't.
Before the 81 trophies and the 900 goals, they were just two young prodigies chasing the exact same crown.
Yeah.
Because if you read through the sources and you rewind to 2007, neither of them was actually the best player in the world yet.
Right. That was Kaká's year.
Exactly. They both finished as runners-up for the Ballon d'Or to AC Milan's Kaká. So they were brilliant, obviously, but they were still human.
Yeah, the 2007 milestone is really crucial here because it marks the baseline, They were viewed as the two most promising talents of their generation, sure, but the narrative hadn't yet shifted into this localized head-to-head duel.
Right, they were just the next big things.
Exactly. They had their first real encounter in the 2007-2008 Champions League semifinal.
Oh, right, when Manchester United drew Barcelona.
Yeah. And Ronaldo actually missed a penalty in the first leg of that tie.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, but United advanced anyway.
Yeah.
And the media started drawing some comparisons then, but it wasn't until the very next year, in the 2009 Champions League final in Rome, that we got what was basically billed as the dream clash.
The ultimate decider for who is the best player in the world.
Exactly.
And in that match, Messi, who is, listed at 5'7" and is not exactly known for his aerial dominance, he scores this rare header to seal a 2-0 victory for Barcelona.
It's an iconic goal.
It really is. I look at that moment in the archives and I just wonder, how does a player of his stature even manage to score a header against a really physical, towering Manchester United defense? Like Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic were back there.
Well, it came down to a tactical evolution, really. Barcelona's system under Pep Guardiola began using Messi less as a traditional winger out wide and more as a player who could just drift into unexpected spaces.
Like the false nine role?
Exactly. The defense was preparing for this conventional physical battle, and Messi simply floated into a pocket of space where they literally weren't expecting him. He just hung in the air just long enough to connect.
Yeah.
It was basically a statement that he wasn't just going to beat teams with dribbling, you know?
Yeah.
He was going to outthink them.
Okay, so at this point, they're taking turns trading blows on the European stage.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still in different leagues, right? They're different countries.
Right, England and Spain.
Yeah, so to me, it feels like Batman and Superman existing in different cities.
That's a good way to put it.
You know, they know about each other, the public compares them constantly, but they aren't actually dealing with each other's success every single day.
Right.
But then one of them decides to move to Gotham.
Yes. The geography is the absolute crucial element there. On June 11, 2009, Manchester United accepted an £80 million transfer offer for Ronaldo to join Real Madrid.
80 million pounds. A world record at the time.
A huge deal. But moving to Real Madrid wasn't just a career upgrade for him. Ronaldo was deliberately walking right into the heart of Barcelona's territory. He was opting into El Clasico.
Right. And for anyone listening who might be unfamiliar, Real Madrid and Barcelona isn't just a typical sports rivalry.
No, not at all.
It's one of the most fierce, historically and politically charged rivalries on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the Spanish establishment facing off against Catalan identity.
Exactly. And placing these two specific players into that specific cultural cauldron, I mean, it changed everything.
You had to.
By joining Real Madrid, Ronaldo locked himself and Messi into facing each other at least twice a season, every single season, and under the most intense media scrutiny possible.
Yeah, you can't escape it.
You really can't. This proximity turned a long-distance, sort of theoretical comparison into an intense, localized arms race. Suddenly, every single weekend was a direct answer to the other guy.
Okay, let's talk about that arms race, because the proximity totally warped the fabric of the sport, didn't it?
Oh, complete.
From 2009 to 2018, while they were both in Spain, the rivalry evolved from just trying to win trophies for their respective teams into this mind-boggling statistical duel.
Yeah, the numbers are just silly.
They really are. You look at the source material, and there's this unbelievable phenomenon of them matching each other in real time. I'm looking at November 20, 2010. Ronaldo scores 3 goals against Athletic Bilbao.
A great performance.
Right. And on that exact same day, Messi answers by scoring 3 goals of his own as Barcelona thrashes Almeria 8-0.
Yeah, the scheduling meant they were often playing within hours of each other.
That's just wild to me.
The pressure of knowing your rival just scored a hat-trick and you are stepping onto the pitch maybe 15 minutes later. I mean, the psychological weight of that is immense.
Oh, absolutely.
And they replicated that exact scenario multiple times. On September 24, 2011, Ronaldo scores a hat-trick. And later that day, Messi scores a hat-trick.
You're kidding.
Nope. Late January 2013, Ronaldo scores 3, and Messi goes one better and scores 4.
Wait, let me stop you there, because the sheer volume of goals gets so absurd during this era.
It does.
In 2012, Messi finishes the calendar year with an all-time record of 91 goals. Yeah. 91 goals in a single year.
It sounds like a typo when you say it out loud.
It really does. And then in the 2013-2014 season, Ronaldo breaks the Champions League single-season record by scoring 17 goals against literally the absolute best defenses in Europe.
Yeah.
Physically, how is a human body recovering fast enough to maintain that output? And tactically, how does a team even facilitate that?
Well, to achieve those numbers, the underlying mechanics of how their teams operated basically had to change.
How so?
Traditionally, football is a deeply complex, distributed team game, right? You have 11 players working in a very balanced system.
Sure.
But Messi and Ronaldo reached such an unprecedented level of efficiency that their managers realized the most logical tactic was to completely bypass conventional football philosophy.
They just threw out the playbook.
Pretty much. Entire tactical systems were engineered solely to deliver the ball to these two men in the most dangerous areas possible. They basically transitioned from being part of a team's attack to being the entirety of the offensive strategy.
But doesn't that raise an important question about the health of the sport itself?
What do you mean?
Well, at a certain point, were they even playing against the opposing teams anymore? Or were they just using the rest of the league as a proxy to play against each other?
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
Right. Because it almost feels like the other teams were just collateral damage in a private game of horse. Like, is it actually good for a team to rely entirely on one individual outdoing another individual who's hundreds of miles away?
Yeah, that tension between individual brilliance and team mechanics is exactly what made this era so fascinating. Critics often pointed out that this hyper-focus could leave their teams really vulnerable if either player had an off night.
Sure, that makes sense.
But the thing is, their off nights were just incredibly rare.
That's true.
Arsene Wenger, who is FIFA's chief of global football development, he summed up the broader impact perfectly when he basically refused to rank them. He said, "They are two different players who have shown the world for 15 years how great football can be."
Wow.
The sources really emphasize that this wasn't a rivalry fueled by bitter loathing. It was a relentless quest for records and reputation. The opposing team simply became the measuring sticks they used to communicate with each other.
Which makes me wonder about the physical fuel required to maintain that kind of insane arms race,
Yeah.
Because to sustain a 15-year duel at the absolute peak of human performance, you need vastly different types of fuel. And the sources give us a really fascinating look at their profiles. They could not be more different in how they actually played the game.
Oh, the contrast in their styles is the foundation of the entire global debate.
Right.
Ronaldo's methodology was built on explosive physical attributes. He utilized power, this incredible leaping ability, and just sheer athleticism.
He's like a machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also built a reputation on his adaptability, proving he could dominate across entirely different footballing cultures in England, Spain, and later Italy.
Yeah, he proved it everywhere.
Whereas Messi's dominance was built on an almost supernatural center of gravity. He relied on close-controlled dribbling, playmaking, and vision. He navigated through tight defensive lines as if the ball were just glued to his foot.
And the media absolutely devoured that contrast, right?
Oh, they loved it.
But reading between the lines of the Wikipedia archive, how much of the narrative surrounding their personalities was actually genuine? And how much of it was just like Nike and Adidas trying to sell two completely different brands?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Because Ronaldo was constantly framed as this temperamental, fiery, arrogant showman, while Messi was always painted as the reserved, shy, humble genius. I mean, it feels almost too perfectly scripted.
The commercial ecosystem surrounding them certainly amplified those caricatures, without a doubt. The press thrives on conflict, and they really wanted a blood feud. They leaned heavily into the narrative of the hardworking, obsessive athlete secretly harboring deep resentment for the effortless, divinely touched prodigy.
It's like the classic Mozart versus Salieri trope.
Exactly. There were even rumors flying around about genuine animosity. Like, Guillaume Balaguer wrote a book where he claimed Ronaldo used an incredibly obscene nickname for Messi behind his back inside the Real Madrid dressing room.
I saw that in the notes. I mean, that's the kind of locker room gossip that fuels sports talk radio for months. But was there any truth to it?
Well, Ronaldo vehemently denied it. He actually even threatened legal action over the remarks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he stated publicly that he has the utmost respect for all his professional colleagues, and that Messi is absolutely no exception. When you strip away the marketing campaigns and the tabloid headlines, the reality seems far less dramatic and, frankly, much more poignant.
It really seems more like two guys who just shared an incredibly lonely peak.
Exactly. And that's the sentiment shared by those who worked closely with them. Sir Alex Ferguson, Ronaldo's former manager at Manchester United, he explicitly said that he didn't think the rivalry bothered them at all.
Really?
Yeah, he noted that they have their own personal pride in wanting to be the best. They weren't reacting to a media-invented hatred. They were reacting to the standard the other guy set.
That makes a lot of sense.
Ronaldo himself actually peeled back the curtain in 2016. He admitted, "I think we push each other sometimes in the competition. This is why the competition is so high."
There's actually a moment in 2019 that I think completely punctures that whole balloon of media-invented animosity.
Which one?
They're sitting right next to each other during a joint interview at an award ceremony. And Ronaldo talks about how much they've shared the stage for 15 years. And then he just casually suggests that they should have dinner together sometime in the future.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And Messi later replied in a separate interview, "If I get an invitation, why not?"
That's great.
It really is. It's just two guys who understand exactly what the other one is going through. Because literally no one else on the planet understands the psychological weight of being expected to score 2 goals every single time you step onto a pitch, except for the guy sitting right next to you.
That mutual understanding is incredibly rare. But of course, the physical reality of the sport eventually catches up to everyone.
Yeah, time is undefeated.
It is. The intense, localized pressure cooker of the El Clasico era eventually had to come to an end.
Right. In the summer of 2018, that geographic proximity was finally broken. Ronaldo left Real Madrid to join Juventus in Italy.
The end of an era.
It really was. And it's incredibly telling that after Ronaldo left, Messi publicly admitted that he, quote, missed having him in La Liga, noting that Ronaldo gave the league prestige.
Wow.
Yeah. When that week-to-week localized tension evaporated, the rivalry kind of evolved, right? From a direct physical clash into a broader historical battle for final legacy.
Yeah. They faced each other only one more time in European competition. It was a 2020 Champions League match where Juventus won 3-0 and Ronaldo scored 2 penalties.
I remember that.
But the global debate regarding their historical legacy reached its ultimate climax during the 2022 World Cup.
Ah, yes, Qatar.
Messi led Argentina to victory, winning a record second Golden Ball award as the tournament's best player. And for a significant number of critics, commentators, and players, achieving that pinnacle on the international stage basically settled the debate in Messi's favor.
But the story didn't actually end with a trophy lift in Qatar. In 2023, we saw the definitive exit.
Yeah.
Both players completely exited the European stage. Ronaldo moved to Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia, and Messi went to Inter Miami in the United States.
2 massive moves.
Huge moves. And they immediately won their club's first major trophies, by the way. The Arab Club Champions Cup for Ronaldo and the League's Cup for Messi.
Of course they did.
Right. But for you listening, someone who maybe isn't following the day-to-day transfers of global football, why does the end of this specific era matter to the rest of the world?
Well, it matters because it reveals the sheer economic and cultural mechanics of global superstardom. When Messi and Ronaldo left Europe, they didn't just quietly retire to smaller leagues. They physically moved the center of gravity of the entire global sporting economy.
How so? Like with TV rights and stuff.
Exactly. Their transfers triggered massive shifts in international broadcasting rights, corporate sponsorships, and global viewership. I mean, they popularized football in the Middle East and North America in a way traditional marketing simply never could.
That's wild.
They demonstrated that true once-in-a-generation figures don't just participate in an industry, they literally dictate its geographical boundaries.
It's staggering to think about.
Yeah.
One person moves to Miami, one person moves to Riyadh, and the entire global sporting economy just shifts on its axis to follow them.
It's unheard of.
But the reality check finally arrived on September 4th, 2024. For the first time since 2003, neither Lionel Messi nor Cristiano Ronaldo was nominated among the 30 candidates for the Ballon d'Or.
First time in over 2 decades.
Yeah. News outlets were literally headlining it, the end of an era.
And Ronaldo himself had already acknowledged the shift a year prior. In September 2023, he publicly declared that the rivalry was, in his words, gone after 36 official fixtures and 15 years of sharing the stage.
Sharing the stage. I mean, that phrasing is the perfect encapsulation of what we've been unpacking today.
It really is.
This deep dive into the Messi-Ronaldo saga proves something fundamental about human nature. The greatest antidote to complacency is a worthy peer.
Absolutely.
Their 15-year duel wasn't just about winning silver trophies or breaking abstract statistical records. It was about the incredible power of having someone in your peripheral vision who absolutely refuses to let you rest on your laurels.
It serves as the ultimate forcing function for excellence. If Messi scored a hat-trick, Ronaldo couldn't take a day off. If Ronaldo won a Champions League, Messi had to get right back in the gym.
Yeah.
They effectively outsourced their motivation to each other, ensuring neither could ever afford to settle.
And there is a deeply practical lesson there for all of us. Whoever you are listening to this, whatever industry you're operating in, you need to find your Ronaldo. You need to find your Messi.
Yeah, you need that push.
You need to actively seek out that person whose excellence frustrates you, inspires you, and forces you to level up. Because without them, you might just settle for being good enough.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to that lonely summit on Mount Everest. Think about the image we started with, the absolute peak of the mountain, standing there alone. I want to leave you with a final lingering question to ponder as you go about your day.
Okay.
If Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo had never played in the same era, if by some twist of fate they had been born 20 years apart and were never forced to share the stage, would either of them have actually reached these staggering, impossible heights? Or does true, flawless perfection absolutely require a rival to chase?
Imagine walking onto a battlefield where the enemy is, just twice your size, twice as strong, and incredibly aggressive.
Right.
Your strategy isn't to fight them head on. It's not to outmuscle them or, build better armor.
Oh, that would be suicide.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Instead, your strategy is to play this intricate, relentless game of keep away for 90 agonizing minutes. You just starve them of the one resource they need until they completely collapse from mental and physical exhaustion.
It completely defies our basic intuition about conflict. I mean, we are hardwired to believe that sheer size and brute force will always dictate the outcome.
Right. But between 2008 and 2012, the machine that conquered the global sport of football, or soccer, wasn't built on size at all. It was built by some of the smallest players on the pitch, and they relied entirely on geometry.
Yeah, it's a fascinating shift.
Today, we're exploring a really comprehensive Wikipedia article detailing the history, the tactics, and the massive cultural impact of a phenomenon known as Tiki-taka.
And our mission for this deep dive is clear, because this isn't just a sports breakdown for the diehard fan.
No, definitely not. We are looking at how a very specific style of short passing football disrupted an entire global industry. It sparked a philosophical civil war within the sport and, fundamentally changed how we view space, strategy, and innovation.
Yeah, Tiki-taka is basically a master class in how a meticulously executed idea can just completely dismantle the established order.
Right.
What this deep dive reveals is that Tiki-taka isn't simply about what you do with the ball when you have it.
Yeah.
That is purely the surface aesthetic.
It looks pretty, but there's more to it.
Exactly. The engine driving the entire philosophy is a relentless, calculated manipulation of space. It's about manufacturing advantages out of thin air.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can really understand how this mathematical obsession conquered the globe, we have to look at the physical environment that allowed it to thrive in the first place.
We have to look at the DNA.
Yeah, the source material traces the DNA of this style way back. We're talking about the 1930s with something called the Schockerkreisel, which means the shock spinning top.
Right, a system that won Schalke 04 6 German championships just by focusing on rapid ground passing.
And that eventually evolved into the 1970s with the Dutch total football of Ajax and the Netherlands, which was then brought to Barcelona by the legendary Johan Cruyff.
Yeah, total football introduces really foundational concept of positional interchange. It's the idea that players aren't just fixed to one spot on the field.
Like foosball players stuck on a rod.
Exactly. They can move, and possessing the ball is the ultimate tool for controlling the tempo of the game. That philosophy took deep root at Barcelona's youth academy, La Masia.
Which is crucial, right? Because instead of looking for giants, La Masia spent decades developing these highly technical, physically diminutive players.
Guys like Lionel Messi, Xavi, and Andres Iniesta, they cultivated extraordinary touch, unparalleled vision, and this crazy resistance to panic under intense pressure.
And the label for this style, Tiki-taka, it sounds almost musical, which is fitting for how it actually looked on the pitch.
It is very catchy.
It was popularized during the 2006 World Cup by a Spanish broadcaster named Andres Montes. He was watching Spain's elegant passing against Tunisia and just started saying on air, estamos tocando tiki-taka, which means we are playing tiki-taka.
But the text notes a really fantastic irony here. The term might have actually originated earlier as an insult.
Wait, really? An insult?
Yeah, Coach Javier Clemente supposedly used it to mock the style. He thought it was just pointless, superficial tapping of the ball.
Wow. An insult that eventually defined an entire era of the sport. But the real tipping point arrives in 2008 when Pep Guardiola takes over as manager of Barcelona.
Right. He inherits this golden La Masia generation. And he takes those total football principles to an absolute extreme.
He subordinates every single action on the pitch to the pass. And the results speak for themselves. Between 2008 and 2012, Barcelona wins an astonishing 14 titles under his guidance.
It was unprecedented. And to achieve that, Guardiola implemented tactics that seemed completely counterintuitive at first glance.
Like what?
Well, for example, he forced the goalkeeper to stop booming the ball down the field. That was the standard safety protocol for decades. If you're in trouble, kick it long.
Right, just get it away from the goal.
Exactly. But he required the keeper to act like an outfield player, literally starting the short passing sequences from inside their own penalty area.
Which sounds incredibly risky.
Highly risky. And he also utilized something called a false nine.
Okay, let's explain that for the listener. Traditionally, a number 9 is your big, strong center forward, right? The guy who stands right on top of the opponent's defense, acting as a physical battering ram.
Right, the target man.
But the false nine does the exact opposite. They drop deep into the midfield.
This is a perfect example of how Tiki-taka creates physical advantages through spatial manipulation. When that center forward, often Lionel Messi, drops deep into the midfield, the opposing center backs face a lose-lose mechanical dilemma.
It's a trap.
It is. If the defender steps out of their defensive line to follow Messi, they leave a massive gaping hole behind them, and Barcelona's wingers will just sprint right into it.
But if the defender stays put in their line, they give the most dangerous player in the world, acres of free space to turn, face the goal, and run right at them with the ball. It essentially weaponizes the defender's own positioning against them. It's brilliant.
It really is. And to ensure that spacing was always perfect, Guardiola instituted a concept called positional play.
I read about this. He literally painted lines on the training pitch to divide it into specific zones, didn't he?
He did. The strict rule was that no more than 2 players could occupy the same vertical line, and no more than 3 could occupy the same horizontal line.
Visually, it reminds me of a highly choreographed ballet, where dancers are strictly confined to specific floor tiles to ensure the visual spacing is always totally flawless.
The ballet analogy captures the aesthetic, for sure, but mechanically, it functions much more like a ruthless game of chess.
Oh.
Well, the goal of that strict grid isn't just to look pretty, it's to guarantee the player with the ball always has at least 2 passing options, forming triangles all over the pitch.
Right, the famous triangles.
Exactly. By maintaining that rigid grid, you can slowly shift your players to overload one side of the field. You basically draw the entire opposing team over to defend you.
And once they commit to that side,
you exploit the mathematical advantage by rapidly switching the ball to the other side, which you've intentionally left completely empty.
That grid requires an immense amount of playable space to work effectively, though, which leads to a really crucial detail in the source material, a 2005 update to the offside rule.
Yes. This is vital.
For anyone listening who isn't deeply steeped in sports rules, the offside law basically prevents attackers from cherry-picking behind the defense. The defenders act as an invisible line. If you are behind them when the ball is passed, you are penalized.
Right.
So how did this specific rule change in 2005 alter the physical landscape of the sport?
What's fascinating here is that administrative rule changes often dictate the physical evolution of the athletes themselves. Prior to 2005, defenders could confidently step forward to catch attackers offside, even if those attackers weren't directly involved in the play.
They could just step up and neutralize the threat.
Right. But the 2005 update softened this. Attackers could now linger in dangerous areas as long as they didn't touch the ball immediately.
Oh, wow. That must have terrified defenders.
It absolutely terrified them. Fearing they would get beaten by a sudden sprint from deep, defensive lines began dropping much deeper toward their own goal just to protect themselves.
And when the defensive wall moves backward, the entire playing area stretches out. The space between the midfield and the defense suddenly expands.
Exactly. And in a compressed space, a 200-pound physical enforcer will dominate a smaller player through sheer brute force.
Because there's nowhere to hide.
Right. But in an expanded space, brute force becomes entirely useless. The currency of the sport shifted almost overnight.
So agility, spatial awareness, and the technical skill to thread a pass through a tight angle became far more valuable than just raw muscle.
Yes, the environment shifted to favor the exact type of player La Masia had been quietly engineering for a decade. Guardiola's geometric grid was specifically designed to exploit that newly created space.
That theory quickly jumped from club football to the international stage, too. The Spain national team adopted the style under Luis Aragonés and later Vicente del Bosque.
And their catalyst was actually a pretty harsh reality check in 2006.
Yeah, the text explicitly notes that Spain looked at the international landscape and realized they simply weren't physically tough enough to outmuscle teams like Germany or Italy.
They couldn't win a fist fight, so to speak.
Exactly. So they embraced a radical solution. They decided, if we cannot fight you for the ball, we will simply ensure you never get to touch it.
They completely monopolized the core resource of the game, and it resulted in a historic dynasty. They won the 2008 European Championship, the 2010 World Cup, and Euro 2012 consecutively.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Tiki-taka is celebrated globally for its attacking flair. I mean, the highlights are all dizzying, beautiful passing sequences.
Yeah, they look amazing on YouTube.
Right. But the text describes the system as defensive and offensive in equal measure. And looking at the raw data from Spain's Euro 2012 run, I honestly struggle to see the offensive intent.
What do the numbers say?
Well, they averaged 63% possession, and they averaged 58 passes per shot. If you are holding the ball for almost two-thirds of the match and completing 50-plus passes before you even attempt to score, aren't you essentially just killing the clock from the opening whistle?
It sounds like it, yeah.
How is this not just an incredibly conservative defensive strategy that's simply disguised by pre-passing?
Because it is an incredibly conservative defensive strategy. That is the grand paradox of Tiki-taka.
Really? So it was a defense mechanism all along?
Yes. The underlying mechanism is flawlessly pragmatic. If we have the ball, the opponent mathematically cannot score, period. Analysts like Sid Lowe highlight this perfectly when discussing Spain's Euro 2008 victory. Aragonese didn't implement tiki-taka to play beautiful evangelical football. He knew his defensive players were physically vulnerable.
So he hid them.
Exactly. He used endless possession as a shield to protect them. It is defense through deprivation. You don't need to make aggressive, risky tackles if the opponent is endlessly chasing shadows.
It's the ultimate preemptive strike. But historically, whenever a highly pragmatic, innovative strategy starts winning everything, a dangerous shift occurs.
It always does.
It stops being a tool and becomes a rigid dogma. The source details a massive philosophical backlash as the years went on, both from opponents and from within the system itself.
Yeah, the initial awe definitely faded, and the cracks in the foundation became visible. Opposing managers began calling it out pretty aggressively.
Jose Mourinho famously dismissed Spain's technique as sterile.
And Arsène Wenger observed a distinct shift in intent, noting that while Spain originally used possession to orchestrate attacks, by 2012, they were playing, as he put it, first and foremost, a way not to lose.
But the most damning critique came from inside the house. Gerard Piqué, who was a foundational defender for both Barcelona and Spain, confessed in 2013 that their play had become utterly predictable.
He used a very specific phrase, didn't he?
He did. He said they found themselves slaves to that system.
Wow. When a core architect admits to being a slave to the design, the ideology has officially consumed the utility.
It reminds me of a tech company that falls so deeply in love with its own algorithm that it completely loses touch with reality.
That's a great analogy.
Like the engineers spend all their time tweaking the code to be theoretically mathematically perfect, but they completely forget they're supposed to be making a product people actually want to use.
Right. They obsess over the metric, in this case possession statistics, and forget the objective, which is scoring goals.
Exactly. Even Pep Guardiola eventually snapped. He came out and said he loathed the Tiki-taka label, calling possession for the sake of possession rubbish.
He had to remind people that the actual intent of the grid was to destabilize the opponent, not just to pass in an endless comfortable circle.
Because it got boring.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the backlash wasn't just tactical, it was deeply cultural. The aesthetic obsession replaced practical effectiveness, giving rise to this horrific mutation the media dubbed Tiki-taka.
Tiki-taka, that's a mouthful. What is that?
It blended the endless passing of tiki-taka with the famously negative, ultra-defensive Italian catenaccio style.
Oh, that sounds awful.
It became agonizing to watch. It was a slow, directionless extreme where teams would endlessly recycle the ball without ever threatening the opponent's goal.
And Italian football legends like Giorgio Chiellini and Gianluigi Buffon were incredibly vocal about the damage this dogma inflicted on the sport.
They really were.
Chiellini argued that this obsession, which he called guardiolismo, effectively ruined an entire generation of Italian defenders.
Because in the pursuit of developing defenders who could hit beautiful 40-yard diagonal passes, academies stopped teaching them the gritty mechanics of actually marking an attacker or winning a header.
And Buffon observed the exact same erosion in goalkeepers, right?
Yes. He voiced intense frustration that scouts were suddenly judging young keepers more on their footwork and passing completion rates than on their fundamental ability to stop a shot from going into the net.
Which is their entire job.
Exactly. When the ideological system overrides the primary fundamental function of a role, structural collapse is imminent.
And that structural collapse is exactly what followed. Because once the vulnerabilities were exposed philosophically, the rest of the world figured out the mechanical blueprint to dismantle the machine tactically.
It was only a matter of time.
The source chronicles a fascinating evolution of how opponents finally broke tiki-taka.
It began with a strategy of radical containment. Teams like Chelsea and Inter Milan realized between 2009 and 2012 that engaging tiki-taka on its own terms was tactical suicide.
Right, you can't outpass them.
Exactly. If you try to aggressively press Barcelona and steal the ball, you will simply tire yourself out while they ping it around you. So they refused the bait. They packed the defense. Chelsea's Fernando Torres explicitly stated their strategy wasn't about stealing the ball. It was about concentrating entirely on space.
Which is brilliant when you think about it.
They lined up on the edge of their own penalty box and essentially told Barcelona, go ahead, pass it 800 times side to side in front of us, but we are mathematically eliminating the space you need to enter the penalty box.
And containment works, but it requires grueling, flawless concentration. One slip up and you're done.
So how did it evolve?
Well, the evolution from passive containment to active destruction arrived courtesy of Bayern Munich in the 2012-2013 Champions League semifinals. They obliterated Barcelona 4-0 and 3-0 for a staggering 7-0 aggregate scoreline.
7-0. That's a massacre. How did they do it?
Bayern used a technique called fake pressing.
Fake pressing. Yeah. Instead of committing to a tackle and getting bypassed by a quick pass, a Bayern player would sprint close to the Barcelona player with the ball, forcing them to turn backward or sideways, but stopping just short of a full challenge.
Oh, I see. They shepherded Barcelona away from danger while conserving their own physical energy.
Exactly. And then Bayern ruthlessly exploited the physical reality of the La Masia generation. Because Tiki-taka was built on small, agile players, Bayern realized they had a massive height advantage.
Ah, so brute force makes a comeback.
It does. They started bombing crosses into the box and utilizing corner kicks to physically bully Barcelona in the air.
So Bayern surgically targeted the inherent physical weakness of the system without falling into the trap of chasing the ball.
Right. But the definitive public execution of Tiki-taka, the moment the world saw the machine fully decoded, happened at the 2014 World Cup when the Netherlands faced Spain.
Right. The Dutch manager, Louis van Gaal, deployed a 5-3-2 formation. He absorbed Spain's endless passing, and the moment his team won the ball, they bypassed the midfield entirely, launching these swift, devastating counterattacks.
And the result was brutal.
The Netherlands crushed Spain 5-1. It was Spain's worst defeat in 64 years.
The mechanics of that 5-3-2 formation are the ultimate antidote to the mathematical grid we discussed earlier.
How does it break the grid?
Well, by playing with 3 central defenders, Van Gaal completely nullified the false 9. One center back could step forward to challenge the false 9, while the other 2 remained perfectly positioned to cover any of those gaping holes we talked about.
So the trap doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the wingbacks pushed wide to suffocate Spain's wide players. The grid was completely smothered.
So what does this all mean? The dramatic irony of that 2014 match is staggering. Louis van Gaal was the manager of Barcelona in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, he was there.
He was one of the early architects who helped cultivate the La Masia generation. He mentored Xavi and Iniesta. He helped construct the very machine that he publicly dismantled on the world stage a decade later.
It's poetic, really.
It forces us to ask, was Tiki-taka defeated by superior counter-tactics, or did it defeat itself through its own stubborn predictability?
This raises an important question. And the reality is that the two are inextricably linked. When your entire philosophy relies on an incredibly strict, unyielding geometric grid, you are literally handing your opponents a map.
Here's exactly what we are going to do.
Right. A team like Bayern Munich or the Netherlands eventually knows exactly where every player is going to be. The system's greatest strength, its structural rigidity and devotion to the pass, became the exact blueprint opponents used to bypass it.
They proved that directness, vertical speed, and raw physicality could shatter endless possession, provided it was applied with calculated precision rather than blind aggression. It is a stunning, complete narrative arc. An idea born out of physical necessity evolves into an unstoppable global conqueror, calcifies into a rigid dogma, and ultimately becomes a predictable vulnerability torn apart by the rest of the world.
It's the life cycle of almost every major innovation.
And the reason we are doing a deep dive on this today is because the tactical rise and fall of Tiki-taka applies far beyond the confines of a football pitch. It applies directly to you, the listener.
Because the mechanics of innovation and stagnation are universal.
Whether you are running a business, managing a complex team, or relying on a personal workflow, your greatest strength, if overused and unquestioned, inevitably becomes your most predictable weakness.
Absolutely.
If you assume your algorithm, your method, your personal tiki-taka is completely infallible, you stop adapting. You become a slave to your own system.
You start tweaking the code, just to tweak the code.
The moment you prioritize the beauty of your process over the tangible results of your product, you are leaving yourself exposed. You have to continually adapt and be willing to abandon your dogma before the rest of the world figures out the blueprint to counter you.
Which leaves us with a final thought to explore on your own. If a system as dominant, mathematically brilliant, and deeply ingrained as Tiki-taka could be completely decoded and dismantled in less than a decade, what unbeatable systems operating in our world right now, whether in global technology monopolies, modern business models, or broader cultural trends, are secretly just one tactical shift away from total collapse?
We started by talking about the perfect machine, but as the rise and fall of Tiki-taka proved, no matter how flawlessly you paint the lines on the floor, eventually someone is going to figure out how to dance to a different song.